Well, hey there, broads. What is going on? Just wanted to hop on this episode quick before we dive into an incredible conversation with the amazing Alexis Haines. I am confident that you broads will enjoy this episode. Becca and I had such an incredible time speaking with her. But wanted to give you a little bit of an update about our schedule for the next couple weeks. Thursday, we have on Organic Olivia. We talk all about herbs, the naturopath ways. It's a really interesting conversation, and she is just a sunshine light of a human being. And then next week, both Tuesday and Thursday's episode will center all around birth, all things birth. With Becca's pregnancy coming to a close here, we thought that we'd get into it. And so Tuesday's episode, we talk a little bit about her past birth plan, the birth plan that she has coming up. And we talk about my birth story a little bit, which we haven't gotten into. And it's a pretty organic episode where I bring it up and shock Becca with some details about my birth that we had never talked about. So we had a great time having that conversation. And then on Thursday's episode, we have a very special guest to discuss her births, and also a doula. And Becca's going to get into more details about her upcoming birth plan. We had a really great time recording these, so we hope you enjoy those next week. And then officially starting June 8th, we have the first episode of this new Bachelor 3-hour, I think 10-week series where they condense an entire season down to 3 hours every Monday. So excited for this. It's going to be long, but you know what? It's going to be worth it. Can't wait to get back into Batch Nation recapping with you, broad. So June 9th, our first recap of one of those episodes will be coming out. And hopefully over those 10 weeks, we will be having some fun Batch Nation royalty of old coming on and doing some recapping with us and spilling some tea. Also, before we get into this episode with Alexis, wanted to give a trigger warning. We are going to be discussing addiction, drug addiction, and we also touch a little bit on sexual abuse. So wanted to give all of you a trigger warning beforehand, but I will say this. Even if addiction and recovery is not something that has personally affected you or your family or friends, I highly recommend listening to this episode. Specifically towards the end, Alexis just dropped some incredible nuggets of wisdom that Becca and I were so grateful to hear. And it's really relevant, especially with what's going on in the world right now. So we're so grateful for her, so grateful that we were able to have her on the podcast. We hope all you broads enjoy it, and let's get into it.
And welcome to another episode of Chatty Broads with Becca and Jess.
Well, hey, broads, what's going on?
Hello. Here we are.
We've actually been recording for a minute with our guest, and I'm just so excited for this episode. Number one, as most of you broads know, I am 31, and Becca and I do have a little bit of an age difference.
We do.
This specific guest, I watched her reality TV show every week when it was on. So I've already been itching to find out what was going on with her. And then I ended up finding out about her podcast, Recovering from Reality, and seeing this incredible arc that happened. And I dove deep, and I feel like it's just a perfect combination because we always talk reality TV on this podcast, but we also have had so many listeners want to talk about addiction and sobriety, and that's something we've never discussed on this podcast before.
No, aside from Craig, but I don't know if that really counts.
I don't know if Craig counts because
Craig being like, yeah, when I was tweaked out on meth and trying to steal my neighbor's car. That's about as
far as we've gone. So today's guest is, I believe, just going to be a wonderfully perfect fit. Broads, it is Alexis Haines, aka Alexis Nyers for some of you. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited we finally made this happen. I feel like this has been 8 months in the working.
This really has. It's been the one that it's been on the calendar forever. I'm like, oh my God, we have to everything, the moving parts always, but we have to talk to her. This is important.
Oh, I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited too because I'm not going to lie. I know nothing except the links that Jess has sent me. And
Oh.
that got me pretty excited,
Ooh.
actually.
I'm excited.
I mean, I obviously sent the famous, infamous Nancy Joe
Nancy
clip.
Joe.
We had to send it, broads. If you don't know, your show is called Pretty Wild. And how old were you when that was being
18.
18?
So
Wait, how did this show even come about in the first place?
yeah. So there's a lot of misconceptions about this because on day 2 of filming, I was arrested. So for the bling ring. And so everyone thought that I got a show because I was involved with the bling ring, but that actually wasn't the case. So what ended up transpiring was I was a 16-year-old who graduated from high school early, who entered into the entertainment industry as a dancer. I worked as a backup dancer. And I come from a very non-traditional family. We had life-size Buddhas in our house. I grew up living on and off and spending time at ashrams and different spiritual centers.
Oh, wow.
I had a mom that started smoking pot with us when we were really, really young. And I grew up in a household with like a lot of chaos. My dad was a very abusive alcoholic. My parents separated when I was 3. I began being raped in my house when I was 5. That lasted for several years. And then I was abused by babysitters and my dad's girlfriends. And there was just so much chaos. And so by the time that I graduated high school and started working in the entertainment industry on a regular basis, I was already fully addicted to smoking, like a lot of oxy a day, snorting Xanax. Like my addiction was much more far progressed past my peers, drinking and partying. And so for me, staying up until 5 a.m. and snorting 8 balls of cocaine and then going home and snorting a Xanax and smoking some oxy and doing it all over again was just like the normal.
How did you get involved in that scene in the first place?
Yeah. So because of my sexual abuse, I kept it a secret until actually after I got sober. And, my home was not a safe space. Like love was conditional love in a lot of ways. It was, I'll love you if you behave a certain way. I'll love you if you perform a sexual act. I'll love you if you're a good little girl and keep the secret from me. I'll love you if you don't have outbursts. I'll love you if you basically hide yourself. And so I needed to check out really early on. And I was diagnosed with a bunch of, disorders, which I don't have today. I was diagnosed with like depression and ADD and all of these things as a kid, but really it was just me like acting out in school because I needed help. Yeah. And I was harboring all of these secrets. And, people are always like, well, your mom like raised you in the thought, the new age movement of like The Secret essentially, and the power of positive thinking and all this stuff. But what she was doing was spiritually bypassing all of her own trauma. And for those who don't know what spiritual bypassing is, it's basically when you turn to any religion or any spiritual practice as a way to kind of negate the work that you actually really need to do in order to heal. Healing is this really brutal, dark night of the soul process. It's not, meditating and and like, let's, do some yoga. It's a lot of deep inner child work. And my mom just was not there. So she was clinging on to sound baths and yoga and saging the house and all of these things in order to try to, bypass all of the shit she needed to deal with. So I had surgery when I was, I think in 8th grade. And that was the first time I ever tried an opiate. And at that point, I had already been like stealing warm beers from my friends' garages. I had been smoking cigarettes and, pot was always around in my house. So I would steal like pot from my parents and eventually they would end up smoking pot with us. And they're just, I would do these things. But when I experienced the high of opiates, it was like, and like normally I don't get emotional talking about this, but it was like the peace that I like so desperately needed in my life. Like all of the other stuff was great, pot and whatever, but for me the opiates did, like it's like it shut it all down. Like it made like everything okay. It was literally like living in a heaven when I was high, and it didn't matter what happened around me. I mean, eventually I'd go on to get raped again. I didn't even care. Like I would be put in so many dangerous situations, didn't care. I was held at gunpoint trying to get heroin, and like didn't faze me. I got my dope. Like that's the kind of relationship that I had with the substance. It was my everything. And so after I had been introduced to those pain pills, I went into ninth grade. I had another surgery. So then I had access again for a really long time because I had both of my feet reconstructed. So I was in a wheelchair and had to learn to walk again in physical therapy. And I remember I went to like a pretty gnarly school, and I just went up to a senior one day and I was like, hey, can you get me some like lean or like Vicodin or whatever you can get me? And they were like, yeah, sure. And I found a steady supply of opiates from then on out, pretty much.
So did your parents know about this at all, or were you able to like fully, or your peers even, was this something that was openly talked about? Because I know you said that you were accelerated in how far along you were.
I think severely traumatized kids. I say that the vast majority of adults walking around are traumatized children in adult bodies, working out of pure fight or flight mechanism on automatic pilot. But for the severely traumatized kids, we find each other, and it happens right around that age when you're starting to want to fly the nest a little bit. You get that, you know, your mom's not cool.
Yeah.
You don't care what your dad thinks anymore.
Yeah.
And so I found my community. My adopted sister Tess and I used the same way. And so we really were in this super toxic, codependent relationship. And we were using buddies. And so when I was 16 and 17 and working in the industry, we were really the life of the party. Like everybody wanted to party with us. My sister began dating Kid Rock. I mean, we had this very insane life. And one day we were working on a film as extras, and one of the producers was like, you girls are fucking hilarious. You should put together a sizzle reel and test for a reality show. And we were like, what's that? Like, what do you mean? Like, what's a sizzle reel? And what are the chances that you actually get a reality show? Like 1 in a million? Like,
yeah, you're an extra. Cut to all of our listeners getting extra jobs and being like, let's be wild on set. Yeah, that's crazy.
Exactly. Yeah. So,
hey, Broads, before we hear more about Alexis's story, we have to take a quick pause. And you're going to hear towards the end of this episode, the three of us discuss our kids. And speaking of kids, family planning is no easy task. More often than not, it's just sort of a let's just wait and see what happens, which we have tools to track and plan everything in our lives: finances, career moves, how many steps we take in a day. Why is fertility still a wait and see? That is exactly why modern fertility was created. It's the easiest and most affordable way to help you plan for your future and your future family. Traditional fertility testing done at a doctor can cost you over $1,000. But with modern fertility at home tests, you get access to all the same information for only $159. That's typically, again, $1,000 versus modern fertility, $159. And after a quick finger prick, all you have to do is just mail back that test with your prepaid label, and within 10 days, you'll have your personalized results. And modern fertility will give you insight into how many eggs you have, your hormone levels, and any reproductive red flags, which is huge, Broads. The results go in depth, and You also have the option to talk one-on-one with a fertility nurse if you want to discuss your next step. So you don't just get your results and are left blindly not knowing what to do next. You have the option of that one-on-one conversation with a fertility nurse. If you want kids today or maybe someday, Modern Fertility will give you all the information you need to make the decision that's best for you. And right now, Modern Fertility is offering our listeners $20 off the test when you go to modernfertility.com/chatty. That means your test will cost $139 instead of the hundreds or thousands it could cost at a doctor's office. Get $20 off your fertility test when you go to modernfertility.com/chatty. That's modernfertility.com/chatty. Speaking of tests, if you broads remember a few weeks ago, I got back my allergen test that I took with Everlywell that confirmed that I can never have a cat because I'm wildly allergic, which is of course very sad because I do love cats, but thankfully dogs are okay and I adore them as well because I have two that I absolutely treasure. But I'm so happy that I found out through Everlywell by taking that home test rather than bringing home a furry friend and then discovering my allergies later. Thanks to Everlywell, you don't have to make guesses when it comes to your body and health. Everlywell offers more than 35 different at-home lab tests, from fertility to food sensitivity to thyroid to heart health to STD testing. If there's anything you've ever wanted to know more about in regards to your health, Everlywell has a test to help you get that info. From start to finish, the process is so easy and clearly explained. Depending on your test, you'll be walked through exactly how to take it. And once you're done, you simply mail it back with that free label and your test will be reviewed by a physician. After that, you'll get your test results digitally with a breakdown that is super easy to understand. That was the most important part for me. Lab tests can be very confusing, at least for my brain. And Everlywell makes it clear, makes it easy to figure out what's going on in your body and exactly how to change it. To start better understanding your health like I did, check out Everlywell today. That's everlywell.com/chatty, EVERLYWELL.com/chatty, and enter code chatty for 20% off your test. Everlywell at home lab tests, your answers, your way, broads.
What ended up happening was we shot this sizzle reel. Well, I should go back and say that I'm a firm believer in affirmation, and my mom and my sisters and I were saying on a regular basis, like, we're working in the entertainment industry, earning X amount. I'll leave out the amount, but we ended up making that exact dollar amount.
What was your mom doing at the time, career professionally?
Oh my God, my mom has had a zillion jobs. She's a minister, a massage therapist, a Reiki practitioner. She makes jewelry. She's a Jackie of all trades. She does everything. She's never held a steady job in her life. She's totally not dependable. You cannot rely on her to like work something for more. Like at that time in my life, like I can't even tell you how many jobs she had. And so,
but she was kind of like hustling with you guys, like
hustling
in this pursuit of an entertainment career.
Yeah, she had a history modeling back in the 80s with like Cindy Crawford, and she was a lingerie model, and she did Playboy herself. And so we were saying this affirmation, you know, earning X amount of dollars, working in the entertainment industry with the benefit of healing the planet. And so it's funny because I always tell people, the beginning of that affirmation came true. And then a decade later, here now, the end of that affirmation is coming to fruition.
Gosh, I have chills. That's crazy.
So, right before we sold the show to E, I was introduced to Nick Prugo, who was the leader of the Bling Ring. And at the time, I didn't know that he was robbing houses. He had been robbing houses for a really long time.
Talk about what this Bling Ring is.
The Bling Ring, yeah. So Rachel Lee, who actually is the assistant to my hairstylist now, weirdly enough,
What?
after going to prison for many years, now cuts my hair. For this like major celebrity, like huge hairstylist. Like I pay like $400 for my haircuts from this guy. Okay. But that's another story. So I didn't even know Rachel Lee. That's the thing. I didn't know any of the other members. All I knew was Nick Prugo. My sister knew Nick. They had been to like an adolescent kind of treatment center together. they had been in partying in the same kind of group for a little bit. Tess is older than I am. And Nick and Rachel had been robbing homes for several months before I met him. And so he was this really kind of like, I don't know, something of, you know, when you meet someone and their energy is just like kind of intoxicating, and
Yes.
it wasn't in a healthy way.
Mhm.
We like to use the same way. We like to party the same way. And so we ended up hanging out a couple of times. And right after we signed our contract with E, I got a $50,000 bonus for signing that contract. And my addiction just like, whoa, like amplified. Like now I had the means, like where before, I think there's a misconception that I was like some rich kid before I got the show, but that wasn't the truth. My dad had been homeless for many years in my youth. We had many Christmases where I would rewrap things that I already owned just to have presents under the tree, where we couldn't afford toilet paper, where we were having food stamps. And so when I got that money, it just kind of like, I went from panhandling and like, I don't know if this is too bad to say, but like sucking dick for drugs to like all of a sudden, oh my God, I've got all this fucking money. And my behavior became so bad that my mom kicked Tess out of the house. And I was like, well, if she fucking goes, then I'm fucking going too. And we went to Nick's house. Well, Tess left me to go to her boyfriend's house. And that night I was shit-faced in a blackout, and I come to in the middle of a living room with a bag being tossed at me. And I was on like so much drugs. And so like, it's still very patchy to me today what transpired. And it turns out that was Orlando Bloom's house. So after that night, I stopped talking to Nick, and like 2 months later, right before we start filming the show, I see this surveillance video of Nick and Rachel at, I think it was Lindsay Lohan's house, because they kept robbing. They would rob celebrities' houses multiple times, like over a period of like a few weeks, and they just were fearless, I guess. But
So were they just partying with people and then stealing from them like while at their house, or like
No.
literally breaking in?
They would break in. So they would track when they would be at like award shows or out of town, and then they would go to their houses and like break in.
Oh, I was thinking like you're partying.
Although
and
that
the
did
person's
happen.
Fucked up.
Yeah. That did happen a lot at Paris's house. I have friends that were in that circle. Like she used to have a house, and across the street she had like a house or a guest house, and people would like jack her shit all the time. It took them like 3 or 4 times at Paris Hilton's house, maybe even more than that, before she even realized anything was missing, because she has so much shit. And so anyway, I saw this surveillance video of Nick and Rachel, and I was like, holy fucking shit. Cause I was like, this is it. Like, this is like, I'm a piece of shit. I do lots of bad stuff, but like, this is like bad. Like, I am not like, this is like next level shit. Like, I'll do what it takes to get drugs, like check cars and basically prostitute myself. But like, I'm not fucking going to become a burglar mastermind with y'all. Like
at A-list celebrity's house.
Yeah. And so I called the cops. And so on the second day of filming, so we sold this show as basically like an alternative hippie kind of version of the Kardashians. And on the second day of filming, the cops raided my house, and I was arrested. And the entire show took a full turn of me at 18 years old battling a heroin addiction while fighting a felony on national television.
So did people know who knew about your addiction at that point?
Not
Was
really
that like
anybody.
common knowledge or no? Oh,
no,
okay.
I think my mom just thought we were partying, and like I said, my mom had very little boundaries. Like she was smoking pot with us when we were
Right.
preteens, basically. And so, and I think she was dealing with substance use issues. My dad was an alcoholic. Like there were, I think that until I'm the first person in my entire family to get sober, like
Wow.
ever. So, so yeah, it was about halfway through filming, we went to Cabo, and of course, we ran out of drugs fast. And if anybody's listening that's ever dealt with opiate or benzo addiction, you know how brutally painful the detox is. It's like flu times 1,000. You just feel like you're dying. And production found our drugs and flushed them, and we started going into withdrawal, and it just was bad. And I think that
Holy
that's when
fuck.
everybody started to kind of realize that this was far more serious than what they had known. And they tried to get us help. Like they tried to get us in with a Suboxone doctor. And Suboxone is a drug that you can replace opiate with. So that way you don't have withdrawal symptoms. And yeah, there was just no hope for us at the time.
Was this all like, because when I remember watching it, and again I watched it a long time ago, like the addiction wasn't discussed. So was this then something like during filming they were trying to get you help? Were you nervous that they were going to start airing this part of your life, like the drug
Well,
piece?
I don't know if you remember, but there was one part where production hid their dog's pills in my bathroom, and then my mom told my mom to go find them, and then we got
Yes.
into a huge fight, like whose fucking pills are these?
Yes,
I
yes,
think
yes,
they
yes.
knew that it was going that way. I was able to somehow keep it together enough to get through the end of filming.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it was definitely, I mean, nothing, and you know this, Becca, like nothing can prepare you for reality TV. You think you know what you're going and getting yourself into, and you have no fucking idea. And so I just was so young and had so much trauma, and I just really made for like perfect reality TV material because I was such a fucking mess. And at the end of the day, you know, and I say this and people think I'm crazy, like my show and going to jail and then getting out and then going to jail again and then being sentenced to a year in treatment was the best thing that ever happened to me. And it's like that one night that forever changed my history. You know, I'm no longer a twice convicted felon now. My record's clear, but the point is that that one night saved my life because the way that I consumed substances was not like other people. I would definitely have been dead by now. There's no question. And it's been a little over 9 years that I've been sober now. And there's just no doubt in my mind that I would have been dead by the time I was in my early 20s.
So what exactly happened? So you started detoxing, and then what happened after then? You got arrested, or what was the timeline here?
Yeah. So in June, I decided not, well, that's a whole other story. There was a really dirty cop on my case that did a lot of really bad things, and he has since been fired. Um, but I ended up taking a plea deal, partly because of him and partly because I was just a heroin addict and knew I just couldn't go through with trial. And so I took a plea deal and I went to jail. I spent a whole summer at the Linwood Correctional Facility in protective custody. So in a cell by myself, 23 out of 24 hours a
Oh my
day.
God.
You get 1 hour out to take a shower in the nastiest shower that you've ever experienced in your life. You can make a phone call and basically like walk around in a circle in this like very small, it's like a dome. And then there's like a row of cells and a row of cells. And I went in and I'd never detoxed before and I kicked
You were
cold.
18 at this point?
I It was just after 4 days after my 19th birthday.
Okay.
So, yeah, I went in, and during that summer, it became, after detoxing, it became really clear to me that, heroin was a problem. Like, you should probably not do drugs anymore. Um, but like I said, no one in my family had like gone to AA or like no one had been like, hey, sweetie, I think you should go to treatment. That wasn't a thing. So I always tell the people this, like, the drugs are not the problem. I was the problem. Like, my trauma, my unresolved pain was the problem. The drugs were the solution to the problem, but I didn't realize that back then. So I had every intention when I got out to follow through on my probation, to test clean, to only drink, to not use drugs at all. And literally that night that I got out, I went to a friend's house where I got blackout drunk and ended up getting in a physical altercation with the girl that I had been sleeping with for many months. And it was just brutal. And I remember going home to my little studio apartment that I could not afford and sitting in the shower and bawling my eyes out for like, I don't know, the water had been cold for several hours. And I spent weeks not wanting to sleep because I was afraid if I woke up that I would end up back in jail. And I now know that I had CPTSD, which is chronic post-traumatic stress disorder. And so I started drinking again, and it was only a matter of weeks before the needle was back in my arm. And I stopped showing up to probation because my days were spent, all the money from the show was gone. And my days were spent panhandling for drug money and considering becoming a stripper because my mom had me in pole dancing classes when I was 15 to get by. And so it was the last night in November of 2010. I don't remember if there's 30 days in November. I think it's 30 days. December 1st was the day that I was rearrested. And I happened to just go to my mom's house. The officers didn't have my address. And so I went to my mom's house that night, and I was in my mom's bathroom. And at this point, I was just trying to smoke heroin. I was trying to stop shooting heroin because I just kept almost overdosing. And I just knew that I was going to die. And so, yeah, I looked in the mirror at myself after smoking. I had a big hit, and I had very little left to ration me to get through the morning. And I looked at myself in the mirror after I let out that last hit, and I just started bawling, crying like a fucking infant for like an hour. Like, who are you? Like, you're not a bad person. Like, why are you in this position? Like, you don't have to suffer like this anymore. And that night I went to bed in my sister's room, and I woke up to the cops at my door again. And it was like the whole SWAT team. They came in, they arrested me. I blamed my heroin on my sister, who was 16, because I was like so in my disease, and just heroin was a thing that like was saving my life, I thought. Yeah. And I was facing 6 years in prison because I had a suspension. So what happens when you take a plea deal is you get a reduced sentence. And if you fuck up on your probation, it's mandatory sentence in prison. And so for the maximum amount of time they could give you for your involvement with the original crime. So now I had not only that, but an additional charge of possession of heroin and a smoking device in a different county. And I was like, fuck, I'm done. Like, I surrender, just like take me to prison. Like, I just can't, like, clearly I'm my own worst enemy. And I'll say his name over and over and over and over and over again. Like the DA just wanted me to go to prison, and Judge Peter Espinoza, love you, saved my life, and he sentenced me to urine treatment. And in that urine treatment,
Wow.
A year in treatment in
urine
that
treatment
that's
in lieu of 6
that's
years in
it.
prison. Well, I had to do probation for 4
Right.
years. Yeah. So, and I ended up getting off
Holy
probation
shit.
early because when I was in treatment, I went to school to become a drug and alcohol counselor. I would then meet my husband. We now own our own drug and alcohol treatment center, Aloe House Recovery Centers, where we treat mental health and addiction. And, you know, I've dedicated my life to this. So, like, it's been the greatest gift. And we've been able to help thousands of people get on the path of healing. And it's just like, if you would have told me a decade ago that like the Nancy Joe bawling baby Alexis would be who I am today, I would have been like, that's fucking impossible. There's no way. But here I am.
Okay, broads, we have to pause quickly, and I will tell you, I may have found the secret to parenting. I mean, maybe not the secret, but a secret for sure. KiwiCo crates for kids. I have never seen something so perfectly entertaining and educational for kids of all ages. KiwiCo is a science and art subscription box made for kids, tested by kids, and loved by kids and parents. I'm raising my hand as I'm speaking to you right now. That's me. I appreciate it deeply. They couldn't make things easier on you. Here's how it works. Once a month, your kiddo gets a kit delivered to your door filled with science and art projects that revolve around one specific subject. And the best part for all busy parents, all of the materials are included. That means no last minute trips to the store or tearing apart every junk drawer in the house to find glue or string. The crates have everything you need. My daughter Ember absolutely adores getting her crate. When that thing comes in the mail, oh Lord, she freaks. Our last delivery taught us all about the rainforest. She loved all the crafts. And what was so cool is even after we'd finished the crafts with KiwiCo, it opened up this great conversation about the rainforest, which it always does. It always opens up these awesome conversations that I have with my kiddo for weeks and weeks to come. She had so much fun, and I had fun putting it together with her. The instructions are so clear, so I let her take the lead, and it's just a joy to watch her building her confidence as she accomplishes these projects. No matter if you have little ones at home, or you want something to challenge your brain, or you want to give a gift to someone who has a kid, they have crates for ages 0 to pretty much 100, okay? Everyone enjoys these. Plus, there's no commitment, so you can pause or cancel your subscription at any time. KiwiCo is redefining play with hands-on projects that build confidence, creativity, and critical thinking skills. There's something for every kid or kid at heart at KiwiCo. Get your first month free or on selected crates at kiwico.com/chatty. That's KIWICO.com/chatty. kiwico.com/chatty for your first month free on selected crates. No, it's like I that clip, you know, I feel like especially like I said, I'm 31. That clip is like seared into my brain. Like that was like just such this iconic clip in our time. And then I hadn't heard from you. And then I happened to see it was like an interview on YouTube, because I had like been watching some like sobriety video on YouTube, and I saw you and I'm like, whoa, wait a second. Like I hadn't even been following, no idea about this story that was going on. And just seeing that change was just so unbelievably like shocking. Was this something that your family, when you were sentenced to a year in treatment, was this like your family was kind of like, okay, were they involved? Were they not involved? Like, what did that look like?
Yeah. So, unfortunately, what happens a lot of times is when the black sheep of the family, or the scapegoat, or the one that everyone likes to point their finger at and go, well, you're the problem child.
Yeah.
You're the problem in the family. It's not us, it's you. When that person gets better, everyone else falls apart, because all of a sudden the light is being shown back on them. And it's like, well, what was your part in her addiction? What was your role in X, Y, and Z? And for a lot of my family members, they weren't really ready to do that work. It got to the point where there was so much sabotaging happening in my treatment that I had to basically stop talking to my mom because it was that bad. And I'm really grateful, when I was about 2 years sober, right after we had a huge fight. I was 8 months pregnant with my daughter, and I had recently come out and told my family about my sexual abuse. The rape that was happening around the age of 5 that lasted for a couple of years, it was at the hands of a family member who was 10 years older than I was. So he was 15 to 17, and I was 5 to 7 ish. And she was so angry about me getting sober and people starting to question her parenting, etc. I remember she even said to my husband once, I have a reputation to uphold. This is the mom who went on public national television and would say, girls, it's time for your Adderall. She has a reputation. She has a fucking reputation now. No, and she started to tell all of my family members that I was lying about my abuse. And she started triangulating everyone against me. All of these people who I was trying to mend relationships with, she just started. It was the nastiest. Still to this day, I don't have resentment towards her because we've done so much work. She's done so much work. It's profound, the work that my mom has done. I'm so grateful that she's in recovery. But it still stung because it really, I know the effect as someone who, I have a million jobs. I work as a birth doula specifically for women who have had sexual abuse.
Oh,
and so as a birth doula, I know that the infant is very clearly impacted by the mother's energy. And I remember sitting there screaming with this primal, I was just kind of starting to work through my trauma, and this primal rage that was coming out of me. And my husband had to call her, and my husband he's a stoic, nothing shakes him. And he had to call her and be like, listen, you're not going to be in our life anymore. This is just not working. And it was it's been a long journey for all of us, for sure. Tess, my sister who I was using with, didn't end up getting sober until several years into my sobriety. My little sister is still healing emotionally. At the time of the show, she was 15 years old. So she was going through this whirlwind. So it's been a journey. I'm happy to say that we're all in a pretty damn good place, but it has not been easy. I always say to people, if you think getting on the spiritual path is the easy path, you're fucking sorely mistaken, because it is not. It is not the easier. It is the path that is so rewarding and worth it, and ultimately leads to peace and freedom and all of the things, and the ability to embrace and sit in discomfort and the gift of healing. But it is not the fucking easy path by any means.
So
how did you get?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, B.
How did you get on that path when you were in treatment, and why was that successful for you? I think for so many people, it would have been sweet, 1 year in treatment instead of 6 years in prison, and I'm gonna go back out and I'm still young and life goes on. Kind of what shifted? Because I imagine it was something within yourself that, for whatever reason, there was the desire. What happened?
Yeah, I think that I knew I was going to die at that point. I just really did know. I was definitely resistant to treatment in the beginning. It's funny. I was deemed least likely to succeed, and I'm one of 3 that I went to treatment with that are still sober. It was this guy, rest in peace, Cadillac Ron. That's really his name. who was this like really dope East LA Hollywood rapper, underground rapper who worked at my treatment center. And one night we were in a big book study. I no longer attend AA, but I did for many years. And I was just fucking popping off at the mouth about how all y'all are alcoholics, but I'm not. I just use heroin because I'm physically dependent. I'm very smart and intelligent. So I would be able to like walk circles around people with my fucking excuses.
You can wordsmith your way out of it.
He looked at me dead in the eyes and he goes, do you think normal people would ever try to shoot up heroin in the first place? And for some reason that just like cracked my fucking ego. And I was like, oh, like, you're right. Like normal people don't stick needles in their vein and like shoot up with like rinse dirty ass cottons and like suck dick for drugs. Like that's not normal behavior. Like it was like a fucking smack in the face. It was a smack in the face moment. And there was many. The thing is, when I was in treatment, I was not at all ready to deal with my trauma. That first year, I went back to school to become a drug and alcohol counselor. And I relied heavily on community. I run a drug and alcohol non-12-step holistic treatment center now, where our motto is connection, not control. Because what really gets you by in those first 30, 60, 90, 365 days is community, is building up relationships with people where you can tell them your deepest, darkest secrets. And they're like, bitch, I'm going to one up you. You did that. I did this. And you're like, oh, like I'm not the biggest POS in the freaking world.
There's no shame.
It drops all of the shame around it. Right. And so I was able to really show up as my authentic self. And as I started to gain more humility and there was cracks in the ego, all of a sudden I became this really raw and vulnerable person who was, my husband saw me from day one until we ended up getting married, right? So he kind of saw this transformation. He had 5 years sober at the time that I was newly sober.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so he would see me in meetings and I would come in with, think like old school, old Hollywood, Audrey Hepburn with the scarf wrapped around my head and the cat eye sunglasses.
Yes.
And meanwhile, I'm like a twice convicted junkie, like 19-year-old embarrassment. And I would be like, Alexis, alcoholic, like, oh my God, I got voted best celebrity mugshot. Like how embarrassing. These were my shares at AA meetings where major celebrities are sitting in Malibu at the meeting with me.
Oh my God.
And these are my shares. And what happened was I had so that happened with Ron, but I was still like, no, but I've got this. Like, I'm fucking cool. Don't worry. My roommate worked at Starbucks during the day and she brought home whippets. And I did a fucking whippet because I knew I wouldn't get drug tested for it. And all of a sudden, my entire world imploded. And I just realized, holy shit, you can't stop doing drugs for a fucking year when it means that you're going to go to prison. We're not talking jail. Like jail was like bad, but we're talking 6 years in prison. And you can't stop. And what happened was I crawled my way into the next meeting, like with so much humility, sunglasses off, bawling my eyes out. And I was like, I don't know who I am. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how you all do this. Why are you guys happy? Why do you get coffee after every meeting? Why do you guys like each other? I don't like any of you. I don't understand. Like, I just was so humble. Yeah. And my husband came up to me after the meeting and he was like, it's going to be okay. And here's a really awesome chick's phone number in case you want to like reach out to like a cool chick in the program and like maybe do some step work. That's what I did. So I worked with her for,
what made you reach out to her? Like you just, cause you just needed
desperate.
Anything.
Yeah.
After that, like whippet experience, it just kind of came like it was like a number of events that all of a sudden, like, I was facing charges in another county now for possession of heroin. I actually at one point during treatment had to go surrender myself to go do jail time while I was in rehab. Like,
Serving
it, serving
basically your
sentence.
other sentence. Yeah.
Oh my God. It was just like, are you kidding, bitch? Like, get it together. Like, it is time, you
Yeah.
know, like, you need to do this. And so, yeah, it was just a number of things that it was like, oh, can I get worse off emotionally right now? Let's try to find out. And then, like, I would finally just realize this self-sabotaging shit has to stop. And I called the woman, and she set me up with one of her like sponsee sisters, and I called her Deborah, and Deborah and I just really vibed. She was this really cool chick. She was a clothing stylist for commercials who lived in Topanga, and she had long curly hair and dressed like she was like my dream, like how I would like to look like when I'm her age. And she was an ex-heroin addict, and she was just, and I just clung onto her for dear life. And I remember I would call her, because when you're newly sober, everything's a big freaking deal. Everything's a big deal because you've been using drugs to numb out. You don't feel your emotions anymore. And
Okay.
so when something would happen that was even minuscule, I would call her in like a panic attack, and she'd go, "You're going to be fine. Sit down where you are, breathe, and call me back in 5 minutes." And then she would hang up on me. And I'd be like, "What the hell? Like, you're supposed to be my sponsor. You're supposed to like walk me through this stuff." And I would call her back in 5 minutes, and she'd be like, "Are you alive?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "You need to learn how to be okay with discomfort. You need to learn how to sit in discomfort. You need to learn how to sit with your emotions. Like, your fear, your anger, your rage, your pain is not going to kill you. It's a gift. And it's a gift that just keeps giving, sister. And we're going to work through it. But like, you have to be willing to go to the most uncomfortable, most dark, deep places of your existence in order to heal." And, you know, still to this day, one of the first books that she had me read was The Power of Now. And then the second book is this book, which I just bought another copy because mine was so ripped apart that I couldn't even open the pages anymore. But it's Pema Chodron, The Places That Scare You. And it's all about how those places that we're so afraid to meet and to become friendly with and to understand are our greatest gifts. And it, I just really, there have been so many like ebbs and flows in my sobriety. I have dealt with such hard stuff. My first daughter's birth sent me into a spiral and a deep depression like never before. I wanted to have a home birth where no one even like looked at my vagina because I hadn't dealt with my sexual abuse yet. And I didn't realize that that's why I wanted a home birth. And then I pushed her butt out and ended up with an emergency C-section and had PTSD from that. And, you know, we had so many nursing struggles. And then when she was 18 months, I had a miscarriage. I became suicidally depressed. I tried to kill myself. My husband, I called him from work. I told him to 5150 me. Like, I have been through so much. My second daughter's birth, I ended up having a VBAC. 8 days later, I had 3 blood clots in my lung and I almost died. I've lost so many friends in recovery. I have had to just go on so many deep, profound, dark. I've gone through so many dark moments, and I finally feel like in this last 2 years, I'm like, oh, I'm on the other side. But, you know, to say that sobriety's been like this cakewalk and it's like so much better is just not honest. But what I want people to know is that if you're feeling like substances are hurting you and you're checking out of your reality, I mean, that's what recovering from reality is all about. It's about waking up to our reality. So despite all of those hard things, and I could list a million more suicides in my family and just so much hardship, I've learned to be okay with the discomfort. And what happens as we begin to do that and make friends with our shadow selves and with the work that needs to be done is all of a sudden the hard stuff isn't so hard anymore, you know? And right now, if someone saw my life, like my real life, not like what's on Instagram, but like what was really happening in my world, you'd be like, how are you still sober and like peaceful and happy and like all of the things right now? And, you know, and this is me without meds. Like I'm not on antidepressants. Like life is really okay. And I think that it's just such a gift to have developed the practice that I have today to be able to do the work that I do. And to have the tools that I have because, yeah, I mean, like I said, shit's imploding right now. And I'm just kind of like, it's cool. It's always been okay. It always will be okay. If I have to move, it's okay. If we don't accept it, get another paycheck for 3 weeks, it's okay. I got food in my pantry. My kids are okay. Like, you know, it's about learning how to, yeah, just be okay with whatever the circumstance presents.
Well, it's more like it's a more. I like what you said earlier about the connection rather than control in treatment, and what you're talking about right now is surrendering instead of trying to control too.
Yeah.
Which it sounds like for you has been the key to living a fuller, truly more satisfying life. I don't want to say like a sober life because I don't think that that's like the end goal is just like to be sober. And there are plenty of people that are like just miserable and still, you know, dealing with so much shit, even though they've been sober, you know, for however many years. But
and I really don't like to hang on so much to the word sobriety because it's like I as a treatment provider who sees a spectrum of people on their recovery journeys, I think in our community, we're really doing a disservice and it comes from us being a puritanical society that deems some people as better than others. Yeah. And so when we talk about sobriety, we're often talking about abstinence, but we're not talking about emotional sobriety. And there's no spectrum. And what we're seeing is right now in the recovery community, a number of people who are venturing off of the standard AA type of model and into alternative healings like plant medicine. And I absolutely still consider those people sober. And, you know, for me, I've just kind of started to touch the surface about talking about this. But so I obviously had a lot of trauma I needed to heal. And I've done everything from EMDR to transcranial magnetic stimulation to neurofeedback to 7 years of intensive cognitive behavioral therapy. I went to school to become a counselor. I'm a yogi who meditates every day. I'm trained in...
Your mom would be proud.
My mom would be really, really fucking proud. Yeah. But more recently, I started exploring microdosing psilocybin as a way to heal my neurotransmitters. And I absolutely consider myself still sober. I don't get high, and it's, you know, non-psychoactive, and it's really had a profound effect on me. And so I think we just have to move away from like these words that we get so hung up in like the words of this, and it's doing a disservice to the whole community because I'm seeing a broad spectrum. I'm seeing people who were young like me who got sober at the same time I did who are now able to have that glass of wine, and that's fucking great. And we're seeing people who absolutely can't, right? And that's cool too. I don't think that the goal necessarily needs to be abstinence. It needs to be peace. So what's going to bring
that's
you
not solving problems necessarily.
Yes.
By just stopping yourself from doing this one thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you also see people with addiction issues, and even though they may be like not drinking and like you're saying, abstaining from drugs, they may be like, I mean, I dated a former heroin addict, and there was like a lot of other shit where I'm like, okay, you're abstaining, but this is like really unhealthy. This is really unhealthy. This is like societally acceptable what you're like, but it's like you can't fuck 3 Tinder dates every single day and like call yourself sober in a way. Like, you know what I mean? That's it.
Well, and my argument is, and I always get fucking backlash for this, but I don't fucking care, is that everybody's addicted to something, whether it's working out, sex. I mean, here's why. And I talk about the brain a lot. The vast majority of the population is living in their limbic brain, living in their reptilian brain, which has the amygdala up here, which is the fight or flight response. A mature adult is supposed to be living up here in the prefrontal cortex, which doesn't start developing until age 10 and doesn't finish developing until age 28. And so that's why, and you know this because you have kids, you have to repeat over and over and over and fucking over again for our kids to do the same shit, because they don't have that prefrontal cortex, which is the parent in the room. It's the ability to think things through. And is there a consequence with this? And, oh, is this a good idea for my life? And so what we're seeing, by and large, as a result of generational trauma and as a result of all of the things, systemic racism, chronic stress, the 2-income trap, all of the things that are really at the root cause of our mental health and addiction crisis in America. What we're seeing is that everybody is not able to access that any longer. And they've actually done brain scans of huge populations of people. And they just know that adults, they're not using their prefrontal cortex. They're always living in their amygdala. And so, whether it's gambling, sex, porn, drugs, alcohol, toxic relationships, being an overachiever, our cell phones, whatever, we all have places in our life that are imbalanced. And so, I think, and that's why my podcast is not strictly about recovery at all. A lot of my guests happen to be in recovery, but we have conversations about a variety of topics. And the goal is really to learn how to become your own guru and how to heal yourself from whatever is causing a disruption in your life.
All right, broads, just have to pause one more time. I cannot wait for you to hear the serious wisdom nuggets that Alexis is about to drop. But before we get into that, a lot of us are still spending our days at home. And if you're like me, you're always looking for new ways to keep your brain engaged, ways that are enjoyable and right now, importantly, fun. And if you haven't tried out Best Fiends, there's your answer. Best Fiends is an online game full of breathtaking visuals, fun puzzles, and a gripping story that keeps you interested no matter how much or how little you play. Also, the characters are cute, okay? I love this game because it doesn't require any Wi-Fi or cell service to play. It's perfect for weird times when you need to entertain yourself unexpectedly, which I feel like we find ourselves in recently. Best Fiends has saved me from boredom more than once in line at the DMV, for example, now at grocery stores, wherever. And if you find yourself playing often as a quick mental break throughout the day or for a few minutes as you wind down before bed, you'll never get bored because Best Fiends updates the game monthly with new levels and events. Until I downloaded Best Fiends, I wasn't really into digital games at all, but Best Fiends got me hooked. Like I said, the characters are the cute little bugs and slugs, and it's impossible not to get drawn in. So engage your brain with fun puzzles and collect tons of cute characters. Trust me, with over 100 million downloads, this 5-star rated mobile puzzle game is a must play. Download Best Fiends free on the Apple App Store or Google Play. That's friends without the R. Best Fiends. Well, broads, this world does feel abnormal right now, and there's just no way around that. And that can be hard to deal with sometimes. One way that I personally have found helps ground me is to insert normalcy into my life wherever I can, whether it be making my bed every morning or just getting dressed when I feel out of it. Doing those small things can help a ton. And for me personally, self-care routines have been really helping me. And my personal favorite self-care routine that helps me take care of my teeth, show some self-care to my teeth, is High Smiles Teeth Whitening Kit. Using their kits, it's so easy. It just takes 10 minutes a day for 6 days. It's almost like a nice reset if you're having an off day, which, let's be honest, might be more often than not right now. And it's the little things that can really help bring back some routine, normality into our days. Plus, High Smile is already used and loved by some gorgeous smiles from Kim Kardashian, Kylie Jenner, to Millie Bobby Brown, and more. It's a system you know you can trust. And if you have sensitive teeth and have had to previously swear off whitening systems in the past, this kit is for you. High Smile uses ingredients that won't irritate sensitive teeth at all. And broads, you can trust. Becca and I both have extremely sensitive teeth, and High Smile, we felt nothing. We just saw the beautiful results. No irritation. It was fantastic. And after using the system for the entire 6 days, I never had any tooth sensitivity or pain at all. Finally, a whitening system I can get behind. And if you're a little skeptical and thinking this sounds too good to be true, High Smile offers a 30-day money-back guarantee. If you don't see at least 2 shades of whiter teeth after using their kit, simply send it back. Not only that, but for our Chatty Broads listeners, High Smile is offering 20% off site-wide for a limited time only. Simply visit highsmileteeth.com and shop their range of products and enter code CHATTY20 at checkout for 20% off. That's highsmileteeth, HISmileteeth.com. Enter code CHATTY20 at checkout. Are there spiritual practices that you are involved in? You mentioned the word spirituality earlier, to help with that.
Yeah. So I've got lots of tools in my toolbox now, and I'm so grateful for them all. I mean, having a really profound meditative practice has just shifted my life in such incredible ways. Working on being really present throughout the day. I do emotional freedom technique tapping on a regular basis. And I have a really amazing relationship with spirit, with the universe, with Gaia, with our planet. I mean, I just live a very intentional, thoughtful life. I try to create a lot of space so that way I can carry that in when we're really busy. We forget to check into that. And yeah, I don't necessarily know how to put it in words, but my relationship with my higher power used to feel very separate, and now it feels very connected. Like we're not at all disconnected. And that's been a really incredible feeling. And it's really just kind of settled in the last 7 or 8 months, where I feel more connected to source than ever before. And so I do everything with my kids, from sound baths to we still do affirmations and all of the things. And yeah, so that's what works for me.
I'm like curious to hear if I'm picking up what you're putting down, but what I really gained from what you're talking about is like addiction is one way to put it, of like everyone has their addictions, but just kind of based on what you were saying, I was thinking about maybe how everyone has ways of numbing discomfort so like if you're, I always get on I do it too. I know I do, but I always get on my boyfriend because he's like, I'm having thoughts. I can't go to sleep. I'm going to go watch TV. I'm like, stop. Like, don't go watch TV. Like, you don't have to, like, don't go distract yourself. But we all do it, of course. I don't want to be in my head. So I'm going to sit on Instagram or whatever. But that numbing that we're seeking, so we don't have to feel the discomfort and the distraction. And so just based on what you're saying, I feel like maybe you have a deeper connection to spirit, like you're saying, because you're resisting distractions that distract from the pain and discomfort of being a human, but also disconnect us from deeper parts of ourselves that may need to be healed or need to be listened to.
Yeah. addiction, checking out, it's all the same thing. It's a matter of us not having the tools to go and inward and to go, okay, so what is this? Like, to get really curious, like, like this is presenting itself. I'm noticing that it's having a negative impact in my life. I'm noticing when I'm on social media for a really long time, I get off and I feel more anxious or I feel depressed. I notice when I'm drinking that I feel depressed, I feel angry. I'm noticing that I used to just have a glass of wine and now it's 4 or 5. I'm noticing these things. And it's a form of checking out. And everybody always asks me, like, are you afraid to relapse? And my husband and I say the same thing. And people are always like, really? And the answer is no, because the shift for me really happened a number of years ago. Because I had plenty of excuses to relapse, guys. Like, I have been through fucking hell, okay, in my sobriety. I've had plenty of reasons where the average person would go, you're good, sister. Like, you need to have that glass of wine. Like, you have that glass of wine, you know? It's when in my practice, checking out of reality was no longer appetizing, where I became so connected to my inner self that it felt so much better to be in my reality, where I don't want to feel out of control anymore, where I don't need, if I need a break, it's like, oh, I need a moment to journal. I need a moment to reflect. I need a moment to watch an hour of junk TV. I need a moment to take a hot bath. I need a moment to breathe, you know? And so for me, when checking in started to feel so much better, even when it was hard and uncomfortable, than checking out, that's when all of a sudden all of that obsession over drinking, because I had it was real. In early recovery, I was like, you mean to tell me that I'm never gonna have a glass of champagne at my wine at my wedding? Like, you mean to tell me that, like, that's not gonna happen for me? And now it's like, I can't even imagine. I want to be so present with every single person at my wedding. I want to be so present with my husband. I want to go to bed with him, just relishing in our love and in our connection and you know, the magic that is that night. I want to experience it all. And for me, birth and life and death, and as a birth doula, I've experienced some really traumatizing births, and holding space and going, this is the moment. This is where life comes earth side. And I'm watching this, you know, experience, and I'm watching this unfold for a mother who has a history of sexual trauma. And I'm watching all of these things, and it's really intense. And it's like, I wouldn't want to be anywhere else but fully immersed in the present moment, because it is so rich. When we learn to stop thinking about the past or the present, and we get really focused, or the past or the future, and we get really focused on the present, oh, the gift. It's like, oh, there's life. Oh, there's blessings. Oh, I'm breathing right now. Oh, my brain waves are working. Oh, I get to hug my child and be here for her. Oh, I get to have, it's like, it's magic. We don't realize that what we're experiencing right now on this planet is fucking magical. It's magical. And we're so often, I think the reason why people are struggling so much with COVID is because we're always go, 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 go. I've got to be here. I've got to do this. I got to be blah, 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 blah. It's the fucking busy awards. Everyone's in the busy awards. Oh, I'm so busy. I'm so busy. What are you doing? I'm so busy. You know, I don't have time. I don't have time to get lunch. I'm so fucking busy. And it's like, all of a sudden we're being called to slow down, and everything is bubbling up to the surface. Everything that we've been suppressing is coming up. And so, of course, my DMs are overfilled with people who are like, holy shit, what do I do? Of course, mental illness is starting to rise. Of course, addiction rates are starting to rise. Of course, domestic violence is starting to rise. But the thing is, these things were always there. We just didn't see it. We didn't care to see it. In March alone, 3,600 people died of overdoses. In March alone. That's happening in this country every single month. That's a pandemic in itself. That's all is happening. And we're not doing anything about it. So, yeah, I mean, I just feel every single breath, even in the moments where I'm in the midst of a panic attack and my whole world feels like it's collapsing and I'm really tired and my kids have stressed me out and I'm tapped out and touched out and all of it. I'm like, thank you. I'd much rather be here than to be back in my suffering, checking out of my existence. I'd much rather be here.
I think we truly do such a disservice to everyone in our culture too when we're so focused on happiness as the end goal, or this sort of like, yeah, happiness is the end goal, because that's never realistic and it's unachievable. And it also doesn't embrace the full spectrum that is existence and that is being. And I think I mean, I've talked about this a little bit on the podcast before, but even the way that we are expected to parent our children, where like if they're crying, we have to soothe them and we have to get to the root of we have to make it stop. Like as soon as we want them to be happy, and it's like that's not real life.
And then you have children, and that's my problem with the attachment parenting method. That's why I follow Janet Lansbury and the Rye approach. You too, okay?
Oh, I love Janet.
You too. Get that bitch on my podcast. I've tried. I have fucking tried. I have begged. She just ignores me at this point. It's brutal. But yeah, when we coddle so here's the thing, and we do this so fucking often, it drives me nuts. Where we have
it's so hard not to.
It's so hard not to. But we have a problem, right? We have our parents who experience total, children should be seen and not heard. Shut the fuck up. Your feelings don't matter. Pull yourself up by the bootstraps. Stuff. And then we, of course, go, well, the opposite of that is oversoothe. My child should never cry, blah, blah, blah. And I did this with my first, right? I had such a bad childhood that I thought that I needed to be this parent who was completely selfless, who breastfed on demand, non-fucking stop. I mean, when that child was 1 and sucking on my tit 80 times a day, I was so miserable. I was so depressed. I felt horrible, but I could not let her cry for a single fucking second because I felt like the worst parent ever if she cried at all. And I was the oversoother. And then all of a sudden I came across Janet's work and I was like, whew, mind blown. So for anybody who is on the path of wanting to become, a parent, or you're already a parent and you're dealing with difficulties. Listen, my second child's such a handful. All of Janet's tricks, they just ain't working. But it's okay, because here's the thing, like when she's mad, I let her be mad and I give her names for those feelings, and I keep her safe, but I no longer feel the emotional anxiety, I gotta fix this right now. It's like, wow, I didn't give you the right cup and you're really mad. I hear you that you're really, really mad right now. And if she wants to carry on, she can be mad, and every 5 minutes or so I'll check in on her and, you ready to calm down? Do you want to take a breath? No. Okay. Looks like you still really want to be mad. And so it's kind of like, it's that balance, right, between the two of letting them have their feelings, not taking it personally, as if she's mad because I'm a bad mom, which that's where I would used to go. And just being really present with our kids. And yeah, I'm noticing I think it's because I've been doing way more screen time than normal because I'm homeschooling my oldest. And so when I'm homeschooling her, she's got to be on the iPad because she's so loud, then she's not focusing. And I really am noticing, I have nothing against screen time. We're all doing what we got to do to survive right now. Yeah. But I am starting to notice that her behavior is starting to get worse.
I've felt the same thing with my little one. It's like when my husband and I are working and I'm putting her in front of the TV or like a device more often. And it's been weird because speaking of talking about like suppressing any sort of like negative emotion, I'm like how Gray, Becca's partner, is. I'm like, if I'm feeling anxious, my tendency is like zone out, put on a podcast, put on TV that's just going to like blur out my emotions. And I think my little one, you know, the anxieties of what's going on and the confusion of what's going on, the amount of then screen time, it's just I'm seeing her get like the agitation and also like the disconnect.
Yeah.
And then it becomes, you know, of course they're kids, but like you see, it's like it's been a mirror to myself where I'm like, oh, girlfriend, that's what happens to you. You get real grumpy when you're watching too much TV, like, or you're on your phone too much, and you're just not in touch with what's going on. And what you're talking about earlier with all the different like versions of what addiction may look like. It's like, okay, like having to on a regular basis go outside right now, sit in the front yard, which I'm so grateful that we have, and like have my hands in between like blades of grass, and it's just the appreciation. You know, obviously I don't want to be disrespectful to anyone who's been hurting through anything that's gone on with COVID, of course, but like there has been something unbelievably beautiful about being forced to come face to face with those things that so often I know personally I would run away from because of my mental health.
Yeah.
You know.
I just want to ask, like, what I know there's going to be so many people listening who are going to be like, well, where the fuck do I start? Like, do I start with trying to dig up my childhood trauma? Do I start with trying to stop drinking, like, or trying to go on a walk for 20 minutes a day? Like, what the fuck where do I begin?
Yeah.
So maybe you could speak to that of just like starting like point zero. Where do you go from there?
Yeah, I think it's case by case. So I needed a major whack over the head like 15 times in order to like get it together. And then for my husband, it was like a DUI. And then for my other girlfriend, it was a bad breakup. And all of us have different paths. I just want people to know that there are resources out there for you. So I don't care if you need to go to treatment, go to treatment. If you need to go to 12-step treatment, go to 12-step treatment. If you need to go to holistic treatment, go to holistic treatment. If you need to just see a therapist and try AA for a little bit, just see a therapist and try AA for a bit. If it's listening to my podcast and reading my book and doing my online course, maybe it's that. If it's doing it with another life coach, maybe it's that. You have to find the person that you really vibe with. In the meantime, just don't die. Like, I know that's so morbid, but it's the truth. Keep yourself safe. Don't combine alcohol and benzos. Don't combine benzos and pain pills. Don't combine alcohol, benzos, and pain pills. You will die. I'm seeing people dropping like flies right now because of fentanyl in laced heroin. I'm hearing the horror stories of what is happening out there right now on our streets, and it breaks my heart. Just don't die. If you need to get on Suboxone and stay on Suboxone for 4 years before you're ready to deal with your trauma, I don't fucking care. Then you get on the highest dose of Suboxone to carry you through until you can witness and experience the miracle. I don't care what it is. There is hope for you, and you absolutely deserve a big and beautiful life. And recovery is so possible. And it's maybe not going to look the same for you as it did for me. And that's okay. So I was just talking to someone on my podcast earlier who was like, I never went to treatment and I was a horrible heroin addict. And I just kicked cold turkey in my parents' living room and started going to NA meetings, and it's worked for me. And now I'm 2.5 years sober. Great. I had another person who went to the jungle and did ayahuasca for 4 months and like did deep, traumatic healing and came back like a totally new person. I was like, great. There is no one approach. Just don't die. There are people here who want to help you. And whether you relate to me or someone else that you've heard speaking about this, It doesn't matter to me. I just really want you to know that you're so worthy of a beautiful life.
Well, I mean, take it or leave it, Broads, but I think after hearing Alexis, you're going to want to listen to the podcast. And I feel like your podcast is a fantastic place to start. You have incredible guests on. It's Recovering from Reality. You also have a book, Recovering from Reality. We'll make sure to put all that info in the episode notes. Anything else that
Yeah.
you'd like to...
I launched my life reset course, which I'm really proud of. And it's kind of like a deeper dive into our subconscious belief systems, which I think is the most profound work that we can do. And I dropped the price from $500. It was like, I had like a firm thing that it was $500 for the month. And what I did was I broke it into 12 payments of $39 and made it a year-long course. So that way it's more accessible to people. And
is this specific to people who struggle with substance abuse or no? Okay.
Nope. It's for anybody who is like, what the fuck? Why am I in the same patterns? Why am I on the hamster wheel of my life? And how do I get off? Because the thing is that subconscious programming, and I'll make this really quick, is really the root of how we heal. You have to get down to those subconscious belief systems. Those develop when we're children. We don't even realize that we've developed them until all of a sudden we keep attracting the same person into our life. And we're afraid to ask for a raise. And something about that thing just makes me nervous all the time. And I don't know what it is. And you'll be surprised when you actually go back in and do the work. And it's kind of like the missing piece. Everyone's talking about law of attraction and affirmations. Like if you're saying I'm deserving of a loving partner every single day and trying to attract that person into your life, but your core belief is that you're not worthy of a loving relationship, you're never going to get that, you know? And so you actually have to go in and do the work. So it's all of this past decade's worth of my work into a course, and what I found to be the most profound transformational tools and techniques that I've used to really clear all of my childhood trauma and crap. So
well, I'm
awesome.
probably going to be purchasing that. So thank you for sharing.
Well, I hope you'll join us. And I think that it's really my intention with Recovering from Reality was always to develop a community of conscious individuals who are on the path. I don't care where you're at in the path. The fact that you even realize that you need to get on the path means you're a conscious individual, right? And so we're building a community of people who are doing this because, like I said, the thing that kept me sober and that helped me heal from trauma was community. And I don't care if it's an online community. I hope to grow Recovering from Reality into something that is so big that there's Recovering from Reality groups all over the world. But right now we're in such a good place, and it's just an honor to be able to hold this space for people to come and do this work.
Well, thank you
Very
so much.
encouraging.
This is so encouraging. And it's just to wrap it, I just want to thank you because I think going into this, especially because personally, substance abuse isn't something that has been in my family or something that I've dealt with personally, but all the words and all the messages that you're talking about are just hitting home in all sorts of different ways. So I know that this is going to be so beneficial and powerful for all of our listeners. So thank you so much. We so appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. Well, Broads, per usual, we will have it all linked.
And chat soon.
Chat soon.